The Atlanta Braves have been among the worst teams in baseball at the shortstop position since Dansby Swanson left. That is set to change in 2026 with the signing of Ha-Seong Kim.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. Been covering the Atlanta Braves in both written and a podcast form for over 10 years now. And this is the Locked On Braves podcast, your daily connection to all things Atlanta Braves. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down this signing for Ha-Seong Kim. Was it the right move to make? Should they have maybe gone a little bit bigger? And what is left? Can the Braves go and do a little bit more to finish off this offseason? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So breaking news here on Monday night. Was trying to have a chill night at home. Was actually getting ready to record some content with Lindsay for our everydayers out there. And then the news breaks. Of course, had to kick my wife out of the basement here where I record so she could go work out in the garage. But I'm glad to be talking about it because it's a big move. And as I said earlier, this was the biggest move left to make this offseason, addressing the shortstop position. And to get to the news, the Braves signed Ha-Seong Kim for 1 year, $20 million, as was reported by several people on a Monday night. I think John Heyman actually had it first. It was a big day for John Heyman. He reported a lot, but Jeff Passan also confirming it that infielder Ha-Seong Kim and the Atlanta Braves in agreement on a 1 year, $20 million contract. Kim had multi-year opportunities, but will return to Atlanta, play shortstop full-time, and hit the free agent market again next winter. So let's start with the deal in particular. We've talked a lot about Ha-Seong Kim, but now we actually have a deal to talk about. I've said for a while now, I wouldn't go more than $14 million a year for Ha-Seong Kim at this point. With the insurance that you have in Dubon, the fact that you don't really know what you're going to get for Ha-Seong Kim, I wouldn't go more than $14 million a year on him. That was somewhat assuming that you were going to at least have a 2-year deal. But on a 1-year deal, it's obviously going to make the AAV go up a little bit more. And it also, limits some of the risk for the Atlanta Braves if he's not that guy. He comes back and he just can't bounce back from all the injuries that he had last year when he really struggled. And he's not the guy that he was before that. It obviously makes it a little bit less risky for the Atlanta Braves to not be locked into a long-term deal with Ha-Seong Kim. But it is a pretty good chunk of change. I want to get more into the money part of it, I think, in the second segment. So we'll hold off on that. But I was surprised to see it was a 1-year deal. I think in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense for Ha-Seong Kim. I think we all just kind of got wrapped up into the end of season excitement about bringing Ha-Seong Kim back. He came here. He wasn't outstanding by any means, but he was a lot better, at least offensively, than what the Braves had been getting at the shortstop position. And when he turned down the remember, he had a $16 million player option that he could have picked up, and he didn't. And at that point, we just all kind of assumed, okay, this market is lacking shortstop talent. He's going to have the pick of the litter when it comes to the free agent market. And I think ultimately what we're seeing with this deal is that just wasn't the case. And that's what we've been talking about on the podcast, really the last two shows, Friday's episode and yesterday's episode as well. That's what I've really been pointing out is when you look at the market out there and teams who actually need a shortstop, it's a very, very limited market, which was the case that I was making for Bo Bichette, and why I think the Braves could have gone out and got a Bo Bichette type, because the market for shortstops just didn't really seem to be there like we thought it would. And when you factor all that in, and the year that Ha-Seong Kim's coming off of, which, look, wasn't a great year. Again, I know we all got kind of excited about how he looked with the Braves, but it's still a year where he had an 82 WRC plus. He had 234, 304, on base, 345 slug, 0.3 F4. It was not a great season by any means. Now, we know that it was a season where he's coming back from shoulder surgery and dealt with a lot of injuries coming back from that. I think in hindsight, if you're Kim, I mean, you got $4 million more. So in the end of the day, you got more than you were going to get. But I also think it is a result of the market just not being there the way that he and Scott Boras thought it was going to. But again, Scott Boras being the great agent that he is, he still got his client $4 more million than he would have had he just picked up the option. But it's essentially the same thing. You're getting a 1-year deal at $20 million. It's a prove it deal for Ha-Seong Kim. If he comes out next year, he looks like the Ha-Seong Kim that he was before. He'll hit free agency again, although who knows what that's going to look like now in 2027 after the new CBA. But it gives him a chance to test the market again and maybe get that longer term deal that I'm sure he was hoping to get this year before all the CBA stuff happens. That could really mess up Ha-Seong Kim. I mean, he's getting $20 million this year. I don't think he's going to be too upset about it. But I don't know that you want to be a free agent going into next offseason with the CBA coming up. So that is definitely something that Kim's going to have to worry about next offseason. But for this year, he's getting his $20 million. He's getting a chance to reestablish himself. It's still a very good deal for Ha-Seong Kim. But again, I think he was probably hoping for a lot more. So what are the Braves getting in Ha-Seong Kim? And we've talked about him a lot. We got to see him last year. This is a guy where you look at his career marks, he's a 99 WRC plus player, which is 100 is league average. For the majority of his career, especially 22, 23, and 24, he was right at just a little above league average offensively in terms of WRC plus. You look at the OPS over those years, it was 708, 749, 700. Again, you are not looking at a difference-making type of bat. We're going to get up to lineup. We're going to get to the lineup a little bit later too, but this is not somebody that's coming in hitting in the middle of your order. I think there's a chance you could see him hit at the top at some point if he gets back to the way that he looked in 22, 23, and 24. But even in those stretches, his best offensive seasons, you're talking about around a league average hitter. But as I started out in the cold open, Braves would have loved to have a league average hitter at shortstop the last 3 years, where they have been the worst in baseball over the last 3 years at the shortstop position. It has been that bad since Dansby Swanson left. They had that decent first half from Orlando Arcia, but it has been absolutely downhill ever since then. So to get somebody that could potentially be league average for you and potentially give you above average defense. They've been getting great defense at that position, but that is something that they've really, really been struggling with since Dansby Swanson left. And that's what they're hoping to be able to get with Ha-Seong Kim, because it's a Gold Glove type defender at the shortstop position. He played second base. He played shortstop with the Padres, but a Gold Glove defender until this past year, where took some big steps back. But again, we are hoping, and the Braves are certainly hoping with this $20 million commitment, that he got those injuries behind him. He's going to come into next year healthy, ready to go, looking to prove himself after taking a 1-year deal. And then he gets back to the type of player that he was before, because in that 22 or in that 21 season, it was a 3.6 F4 season. And that's with, again, just a 105 WRC plus. The defense was carrying a lot of that. In 2023, he had 4.2 F4. And that year, you had the offense, which again, inflated baseballs that year, juice baseballs. So the offense actually outperformed the defense that year, but the defense was still really good. And then in 2024, offense took a step back, just a 101 WRC plus, but the defense was still really, really good, leading to a 2.6 win player. You can get a 2.5, 3 win player out of Ha-Seong Kim this year. That is going to be a major improvement at the shortstop position for the Atlanta Braves. So do not get me wrong. Next, we're going to talk about, was this the right way to go about the shortstop position? So don't get it twisted with what I'm going to say maybe in the next segment. I like this move. It was a very much needed move. It was a top priority. I think they had to address shortstop. I said it on yesterday's episode. You cannot go into the year with Mauricio Dubon as your shortstop. That would be a failure by this front office. You had to go find a legitimate everyday shortstop, and I feel like they've done that in Ha-Seong Kim, but was it the right move? Was it the move that they should have made. We'll get into that here next. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels a lot different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines adjusting instantly. We got to check the World Series odds. Braves up to plus 1,800 with this move of Ha-Seong Kim, firmly putting them in the top 8 odds to win the World Series next year. So they're starting to react to it here live as well. But you also have NFL games going on. You got the Monday night game between the Dolphins and the Steelers right now. You can see live odds coming in on that game as the Steelers are a 3.5-point favorite there. You got touchdown scores for Jaylen Warren. I don't even know some of these guys on, so I'm going to stop naming people, but you can see all that right there at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, just visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you're a true diehard Braves fan, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me and Lindsay, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbraves.supercast.com to join the Everydayer program and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes below. Getting back into our discussion here about the signing of Ha-Seong Kim for 1 year, $20 million. Again, good move by the Atlanta Braves. Absolutely had to have it. Here's the press release really quickly. The Atlanta Braves today signed infielder Ha-Seong Kim to a 1 year, $20 million contract for the 2026 season. The infielder returns to Atlanta after playing the final month of the last season with the club. Kim, 30, split the 2025 campaign between the Rays and the Braves, appearing in 48 total games and combining to hit 234, 304, 649 between the two clubs. Braves claimed him off waivers in September, and he appeared in 24 of the club's 25 final games. And in that stretch, Kim batted 253, 316, 368 with 3 homers, 12 RBI, and all 24 of his appearances came at shortstop. So you just take even what he got with the Braves in the final month last year: 253, 316, 368, 3 home runs. If he were to give you that over 5 months next year at the shortstop position, again, you're going to be talking about a 3-win player. Now, the big key for me is, does the defense come back? And that's just something we won't really be able to see until he gets back out there. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because he's been a really good defender in the past. And look, if you're not going to be, you can be average at both, and that's certainly fine. And maybe that's what you're going to get with Ha-Seong Kim, but would love to get the gold glover back. Certainly. That's what the Braves have been used to. And if the offense doesn't come back and he's more of an 80 WRC plus guy, then the defense has to overcome that. Is the point that I'm trying to make here, is that I'm worried about the offense not coming back and the defense not being above and beyond to overcome that, is really my only major concern here. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I saw the news for Ha-Seong Kim getting signed, for one, that was my prediction last week. Somebody asked me, what I thought the last big move was, and I said, I think it's going to be Ha-Seong Kim. But I'm not going to lie. I was looking for a little bit more. I was aiming for a little bit more. The podcast we had yesterday was talking a lot about the potential of Bo Bichette just because the shortstop market wasn't there. The Blue Jays had already spent a ton of money. Do they have enough money to go get Bo Bichette? Personally, I think somebody will pay Bo Bichette, and they have to play him at second base DH. They'll do so. But I wasn't all that thrilled or excited when I saw the announcement. Again, I like the signing. The team is better today than it was yesterday. I think pushing Mauricio Dubon to a bench role is great for the team. It allows you to use him at second base at times. It allows you to use him in center field against a tough lefty as he handles lefties well. If Kim's defense doesn't come around, then it allows you to move him into the shortstop position. It just gives you so much more flexibility having him, having Yastrzemski, having Murphy or one of them, having Murphy or Baldwin on the bench. It gives you a lot more versatility for your lineups. So again, I've very much been on the train that Dubon needs to go to the bench and that you need to get an everydayer at shortstop. And Kim is that. And look, while I was hoping for something, magical to happen, I was hoping for maybe a Bo Bichette or a Corey Seager. There weren't a lot of realistic, huge upgrades that you could have made this offseason. And, outside of just a dream scenario, which at this point, Corey Seager sounds like a dream scenario. And even Bo Bichette, the defense is bad. I could have lived with it for a year or two if you're going to get the offensive production from him. The options were very, very limited for what you could do this offseason at shortstop. And I think Ha-Seong Kim is one of the best things that you could have done. So I'm very pleased with the deal. Do not get me wrong. But I'm not lying. I'm not lying to tell you. I mean, I wanted a little bit more. I was hoping for a little bit more. But this is always what I thought the Braves would do. I thought they would bring back Ha-Seong Kim. I thought it would be something like a 2-year, $26 million deal, something like that. Instead, they get him on a 1-year, $20 million deal. And I think it's going to make the Braves lineup really, really good. So let's look at that lineup, because I had just posted on social media today what the lineup currently would look like. And I really don't change anything with this. If you missed it on social media, I put out the Braves lineup for 2026 as Ronald, Profar, Olsen, Riley, Baldwin, and then a combination of Murphy and Yastrzemski in the DH role, and then Ozzie, Michael Harris, and Mauricio Dubon. I don't change anything. I just sub out Kim for Dubon. Like I said, Kim is not a huge offensive upgrade. Now, if he can get back to, getting on base like he did in, 2021, 22, 23, let's see, in 2021 or 2022, he had a 325 on base, 323, he had a 350, 324, he had a 330 on base. And in those years, he was also stealing. He stole 12, 38, and 22 bases. This past year, he stole 6. So you're looking at a guy that could potentially give you 20 stolen bases next year. So if he's getting on base at a 330 clip and he's able to steal a bag for you every now and then, I would not be surprised at some point to see Ha-Seong Kim work his way up to the top of the lineup. But for me, he's either batting leadoff, second, or ninth. And I think in this lineup, you probably want him hitting ninth. And if he can do that, get on base in front of Acuna like we've seen players do in the past, and the lineup have so much success, I think this lineup could be very, very good. Again, if you're getting the bump from Dubon, who's an 80 WRC plus player, to Ha-Seong Kim, who's a 100 WRC plus player, that is a big upgrade. Do not get me wrong here what I'm saying. This is a huge upgrade from what the Atlanta Braves have been getting at the shortstop position over the years. So that's what my lineup would be, with Kim just batting at the bottom. I think that makes a lot of sense. Somebody saying don't knock on Nick Allen. Loved his defense. He was one of the more exciting things to watch this past season. But this is a big upgrade. This is a big upgrade over what the Atlanta Braves have been getting at that position for so long now. And that can't be stated enough, just how important it is for them to address that position. But again, not only address that position, but you're addressing almost every position on the field, because now you're putting Dubon in a spot where he can help you in almost every situation out there and can cover for other guys on the field. And now if somebody gets hurt, you now have a at least this average replacement in Mauricio Dubon. You're not having to find somebody on the waiver wire. You don't have really anybody at the minor league level that's going to be able to cover that. Now you have some actual replacements. So I was looking up the numbers just to give you the actual numbers for the Atlanta Braves shortstop position since Dansby Swanson left. So the last 3 seasons, the Braves ranked 27th in FWAR at 2.7. And you look at offensive WAR over that time, they ranked 26. I was actually a little surprised. I thought that would be worse, because their defensive WAR has actually been really good in that that stretch. They're 12th in defensive Fangraphs WAR over the last 3 years, which they were really good, obviously, with Dansby, but their offensive WAR over that stretch is 26th in baseball. It's been really, really bad offensively for the Atlanta Braves. And now you get a guy in Ha-Seong Kim that you're hoping, now healthy, can give you, 10 to 15 home runs, can steal 15 to 20 bags, can get on base 30, 32, 33% of the time, can hit, 240, 250. Now he's hitting 230 his last 2 years, 233 in 220 in 2024, 234 last year. The 2 seasons prior to that, he hit 250, 251, 260. So he's not going to help a ton in the batting average department, but it is a guy that in 2023, he walked 12% of the time. In 2024, he walked 12% of the time. It is a guy that will take his walks, will get on base. It's at least an 8% walk rate, and it's a guy that doesn't strike out a lot. Last year, he struck out 20.4% of the time. That was the most since his first year coming over from Korea. But other than that, it's been 17, 19, 16%. So it's a guy that does put the ball in play, has some speed, can get on base, and has a little bit of pop, at least more than Nick Allen had. So not to take another shot at Nick Allen here. So it's a big upgrade for the Atlanta Braves at shortstop. A good signing, again, a 1-year deal, not a ton of risk in that. And I think it's a great move for the Atlanta Braves. And one of the best moves that you could make. Again, yeah, I wanted to see something a little bit more exciting. I wanted to see them take a shot on him, on a Bo Bichette, a Corey Seager, but you couldn't have done much better this offseason than what the Braves did in getting Ha-Seong Kim. So this is a huge upgrade for the team. I do think this is it for the lineup now. We're not getting that big bat. I've maintained all season Ha-Seong Kim is not that big bat. It's a big bat in terms of upgrade over what they've been getting at that position, but it's not the Byron Buxton. It's not the Cody Bellinger. It's not the big bat necessarily that I was hoping for. But this lineup is better. It's more rounded, and it's more prepared for injuries. It has a lot better depth now than it did in the last 2 seasons when you've dealt with so many injuries in the lineup. It has a replacement for shortstop and second base with Dubon now. It has a replacement in the corner outfielders with Yastrzemski and Profar and Acuna. It even has a replacement in center field with either Dubon or Yastrzemski. It is just a much deeper lineup now that the Braves have that they can use this upcoming season. So I really, really like this move. Little surprised at that 1-year price tag, but it is for 1 year, and that's why it's a little bit higher than maybe we were anticipating. Next, we'll take a look at you've gone big and spent this much. Can they potentially go a little further and finish off the offseason? We'll discuss that here next. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be pretty massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. And that's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. I use Game Time whenever I'm getting ready to go to a baseball game. I used them last year to go to a game at the end of the season. Got a great deal on the day of the game. Last minute, section 41 for me and my entire family. Had a fantastic time despite getting blown out. But you will enjoy it as well when you use Game Time. You're going to get a great deal. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Let's finish things off here talking about what could potentially be left. This was the biggest, this was the last must-have item for me this offseason. So if things stopped here, this would be probably an A- offseason for me, because you still didn't get that quite huge splash that I was looking for, but you took care of the needs. You took care of shortstop. You took care of the bullpen. I came to the conclusion that you didn't necessarily have to do anything in the rotation, but will they? And I still think, as I talked about on Friday's episode, number one left was shortstop It would be nice to have another bullpen arm. It would be nice to have another starter in the mix, but those are no longer necessities for me. So anything additional at this point is just a bonus. For me, you've taken care of the necessities that you had to take care of this offseason. So anything else would be extra for the Atlanta Braves this offseason in Alex Anthopoulos. And here's the thing, and hopefully Fangraphs has this updated, and it looks like they do. So let's take a look at the payroll for the Atlanta Braves after this Ha-Seong Kim move. They right now have the team payroll at $260 million. So if you listen to yesterday's podcast, we went pretty deep into the payroll aspect of it. The team payroll is what AA says that he goes off of. The team payroll has never been more than $240 million. It is currently sitting at $260 million. So how much further can AA go? That's on the team payroll. Let's talk about the luxury tax payroll here for a moment, because that's the one we've been more focused on, but that's because it had been higher than the team payroll, and now it's lower than the team payroll. The estimated luxury tax payroll, according to Fangraphs right now, after the Ha-Seong Kim signing, is $255 million. The first threshold this year is $244 million. So they're into the tax. With the Ha-Seong Kim signing, they are now into the first tier of the luxury tax at $255 million, the first tier being at $244. The third tier, which we saw them go up against in 2024, is $284 million. So assuming that that's what they're going to do again this year, there's still potentially another $20 million to add this offseason. Assuming, as always, that AA wants to save a little bit of money for in-season moves, there's potentially $20 million left to be spent this offseason. We also talked about yesterday's episode how much this front office owners have discussed wanting to be a top 5 payroll. And you want to be a top 5 payroll, you got to spend $280, $290 million on your team payroll. And that's what that would do if they were to spend another $20 to $30 million. $280 million would have been fifth highest team payroll in baseball last year. They can do it. We know they can do it, but will they? You could finish off the offseason. You could go, even if it is just to bring back a Pierce Johnson for $5 million. Again, it wouldn't have made much sense to turn down his $7 million option at that point. But if you just brought back a Pierce Johnson type for $5 million to give you some more depth in the bullpen, again, doesn't have to happen, but would certainly be nice. Go get a Chris Bassett for $15 million. Could you do that after what Merrill Kelly signed for? Maybe that's not enough. But could you get a starting pitcher of that caliber, a mid-rotation type of arm that can give you some quality innings? Can you do that with what's left in the budget? I think it's certainly possible. Again, we are in new territory for what the Braves are willing to spend. I told you the highest team payroll before this was $240 million. Now, that's also not fair because AA said that he rolls over his tax payments into the team payroll. In that 2024 season, they went up against the third luxury tax threshold. So adding that into the team payroll, it was probably more like $250 million in 2024. So, but even with that, you're still at a new high, sitting at $260 million. So how much further can AA go is the real question for the Atlanta Braves, for Braves fans, because at this point you've gone past the luxury tax. So you know you're into that. You know you're paying a penalty. So why not just go as far up to that third threshold as you can? And the reason they don't want to really go past that third threshold is because that's when you start messing with draft picks, and you don't really want to do that if you don't have to. I mean, teams certainly will, but you don't want to have to do that, if you can avoid it. And so that's why that third tax threshold has really been where we've seen AA stop in the past. And I think they'll likely do that again this season. But I do think where you are, it just makes sense. Just complete the offseason and go get another bullpen arm. Doesn't have to be the best in the world, but go get another solid bullpen arm, Tyler Kinley, Pierce Johnson, somebody of that level that you can get for $5 million or less. Go get a veteran starter for the middle rotation, like a Chris Bassett, somebody like that, to just give you more depth in the lineup. I wouldn't do, Justin Carraway says, Zach Gallen on a 1-year prove himself deal. I wouldn't do that because he has the qualifying offer attached to him. At this point, they're not giving up that qualifying offer. I think that's pretty much sealed at this point. They're not going to sign. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, maybe they surprise us and they go after Framber or Ranger Suarez. I highly doubt that. But I don't think they'd go. I wouldn't go after Zach Gallen. I wouldn't give up the 26th overall pick for Zach Gallen right now and pay him what he's going to likely get. Even if it's a 1-year, $20 million deal, you're also giving up the 26th overall pick and a good chunk of money for a guy that's, coming off a pretty rough year. So I wouldn't do that personally for Zach Gallen. I think you could find a similar pitcher that doesn't have a qualifying offer attached to them that I would go after myself. But again, I would do it. I certainly think that is something that the Braves and Alex Anthopoulos are capable of doing and something that they will look to do. But let me know what you think in the comments section down below. How do you feel about this Ha-Seong Kim signing? Are you excited about it? Again, I think it's a great move. I think the Braves are much better today than they were yesterday. So this is a good move for the Atlanta Braves. But again, was maybe hoping for something a little bit more spectacular just because there's nothing coming up in the pipeline either that is all that close. So you're going to be looking for a shortstop again next offseason are the Atlanta Braves, unless John Gill just takes major strides this upcoming season, which is possible, but it's not very likely. So the Braves are going to be in the same boat next offseason, but maybe there'll be some better options next offseason. And what do you think about the rest of this offseason for the Atlanta Braves? Do you think they finish it off now, go up towards that third tier in the luxury tax? Do they get another reliever, another starter, or maybe they just get another starter and you could push one of, Holmes, Lopez, Elder to the bullpen until they're needed? I think that's definitely a way that they could go with it to help out in both areas. You could help the bullpen by putting one or two of those guys there and deepen your rotation by signing a mid-rotation type of guy. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. But really excited about this move for the Braves. But let me know how you feel about it down below. All right, thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Also, make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button and make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next.